Hello and welcome, Rangers. I'm Joe. Dan's going to be joining me in a minute or a few seconds. So, welcome to our Jason Lee Scott live stream. A stream. Dan's been kind of a little more eager than me. Not to say I've not been eager, because it's Jason, original Red Ranger. So, to start with, when we first meet him, he's probably the most experienced martial artist on the team at the start of season 1 because, well, when you look at the abilities of a lot of characters, like Kim's good, I guess, but Kim's good, actually. Billy's not that good. Trini's better than Kim at the start. Zach, I would argue, is probably second best. He's the only one who can keep up with Jason. But Jason is just, he's really good at the start. Like, he's really good. And I only praise him because let's give him all the praise in the world. And, oh, we have a new sub here. Power Rangers Corner. How's it going, bro? I'm doing pretty well. A few days ago, I wasn't doing great, but I had a Tolkien live stream the other day, and I had a great time. So now I'm doing really good. And Dan?
I'm doing really good here.
Let's see. Let me move to the side so, we don't have the mic blocking you.
And so I could be in the center.
Yeah. And how are you, Austin McNeil? Hope you're well. Honestly, this is a stream we've been kind of waiting for a bit to do, but life's been busy these past few weeks. I'm currently between jobs. Well, actually, we're both working as janitors, but I say between jobs, but that's part-time. So we're a bit more traditionally French. So for us, if it's part-time, it's kind of between jobs. But if you're more comfortable working part-time, no shame here. It's just I want to have full-time again. But anyways, Jason is such a... Oh, real quick. I'm great, thanks. Oh, I'm glad. On est très heureux d'entendre cela. We're very glad to hear that. Jason, though, is... I'm going to say that at the start, he's probably the most intrigued by Zordon's offer. Kim is a little freaked out. Zach's really wigged out. Trini is confused and bewildered. Billy, I forget how he feels about the offer. I do remember him being intrigued by the text, so he's probably a little intrigued. But Jason is the one who really seems to consider what Zordon has to say the most seriously. And kudos to Jason for that. In a lot of ways, Jason is the most commendable in the first part of the first season. And while his Power Ranger career, I would argue, did not become the kind of legend that Tommy's did, because who could measure up to Tommy? But at least in my ranking of Rangers, some might consider this controversial. I'd kind of rank TJ, Leo, and Mike Corbett and Kim probably a little higher than Jason because I find we got to explore them more. That said, I think that Jason does certainly play a large role in the mythology. And the reason for that it was him who gave the offer of a handshake to Tommy. It is Jason who said, who offered him that chance. Yes, Kim was the first one to plead with Tommy and was the one that Tommy looked to for guidance in a way in that moment. But the first one, okay, actually, I'll actually say that Kim's really the first one to offer him that helping hand. So technically, but other than Kim, it's Jason. But Kim, we have to bear in mind, was in love with Tommy. So that's something else. And Jason is very integral there. And I do think that he does not get enough credit by the fans for the redemption of Tommy. Sorry, I'm always going to have a soft spot for that reason. I like that scene when he's like, join us, Tommy. I love that scene. Anyways, Austin McNeil has a question. Hey, guys, if you could change things in Mighty Morphin, Power Rangers, Zeo, and Turbo, what would you do and what would you keep the same? Okay, so before we get into Jason throughout Mighty Morphin, all right, we've got a series of videos, I think, in the Ranger podcast where we discuss this a little. For one thing, season 3, I think, would need a total rewrite because season 3 was not great. The minute Zed threw himself on the ground and started throwing a temper tantrum, it lost me. I'd want Zed to be a bit more of an intimidating force as a character, like he was in season 2. Although, that said, I don't think the marriage with Rita was a bad story idea. That was a good idea. It's the natural culmination of both characters. And the two play off each other really well. Now, I would argue that the Machine Empire, there are good ideas there. I don't agree with the entire execution of some things. Now, I know I'm nitpicking here. I'm starting with the villains just so I can then go to the heroes. Divatox was a pretty good villainess, I'll grant you. There were good ideas with her. Once again, it was execution at a few points. And you got to bear in mind, some parts of the production cast want to make a comedy, not an action kind of adventure story. Turbo has a very confused feel to it. Not the actor's faults. Okay, all that aside, I'd probably want a bit more of an intimidation factor on Zed's end. I'd probably, we did a video, I'd want Billy to be the Gold Ranger. That's very important to me because, because Rocky suspecting Billy was the Gold Ranger, I really like that part, that episode and that scene. And I really like the hinting at the bromance between here, I'm just going to fix up the camera a little. All right, because I just noticed it's not very good. All right, so we were almost hidden, and I want to relax a little. I think that the power of the bromance there. I really like the Rocky Billy bromance. I've always been fond of it. And David Yost really wanted to play a kind of Sixth Ranger character, and I really feel like he should have gotten that chance. I'm a big Billy fanboy.
It would have been the natural result of how things progressed, and you know what?
But yeah, I think I would have wanted Aisha to make a comeback in Turbo as a Sixth Ranger, bring her back. But and then real quick, I'd want Jason to come back in space. I believe we talked about that in a video as well. And just so that Jason could get that final shot on Divatox, I want her killed off. Just, I know you're a fanboy of hers, Dan, but I want her killed off to Jason because the movie with Jason, he got to experience what Tommy felt with that possession thing. And I'll repeat that because we just had a weak connection. Okay, so I'd want Divatox slain by Jason, but it's because she possessed Jason in a more brutal way, I think, than what Rita did, because it looks like it was probably a little more traumatic than what Tommy went through to an extent. And I'd want that to be a culmination of Jason's character, like a great crescendo, and that in space would, the thing with the death of Zordon, I don't mind, but I'd argue we should have had as the final battle scene kind of Divatox in a sword fight with Jason. I want that. But
and Jason appearing in space instead of Zeo, Jason would have been able to get out of Tommy's shadow because of the events of Zeo, Jason becoming the Sixth Ranger.
Yeah,
it all became about Jason versus Tommy.
Well, I guess I don't know if I thought about it that way, but because I think we've had this debate before several times. We haven't always agreed. Sometimes we have, but overall, I do think that the two were struggling with each other for screen time, and it's it would be nice to get Jason without Tommy, or because we got Tommy without Jason for a long time. So why not have the other way around? And I think we got that in a recent season, didn't we? Where Jason got to be a professor or something.
I think so.
Yeah, I think he became like Captain Mitchell. I can't remember. I know he showed up in a recent season. I've not paid attention in a while. I hope that answers your question, Austin McNeil. So yeah, season 3, I'd still want the power transfer, but I think I would have liked it had we gotten comics, not like what we did get, but maybe almost slice of life where you have Jason, Trini, and Zach kind of dealing with the after effects of the power transfer. Where maybe, and at the peace conference, with maybe Zach and Trini embracing the change, but we could get to see why Jason. I don't see him adjusting to it as well as the other two. And weirdly, I could see Trini and Zach really enjoying civilian life, but I don't think. Like, one thing the series did get right, though, and Zio got right, was that Jason did not embrace civilian life. And I think it's important that we show he doesn't, and that he's going to come back. Like, no matter what, I would argue at the power transfer, like, I'm not the biggest Jason fanboy, but he has to come back. His arc is not finished. His character arc, he still has a lot to get done. It's not like, I would argue, Zach's arc was pretty much finished. He had a beginning, middle, and end. Trini, I do think we could have gotten a bit more info. Actually, I think I had the idea for a video recently of Richie, her possible boyfriend. Maybe he should have come back in a later season. Maybe instead of Justin, we should have gotten him in Turbo as the Blue Ranger, and we had Trini as his love interest, as a civilian, and where she acts like a bit of a den mother for, like what Haley did in Dino Thunder. Maybe that would have worked.
That's possible.
Where we don't get Trini fighting, but we get her, and I'm trying to work within the context of Louis Trong, her lifespan here, not to show disrespect to her. I don't mean any disrespect here. I would have loved to see her come back in Power Rangers with a higher pay increase. Sorry if I get waspish about that. I don't agree with how they treated the Ranger actors. I think we've beaten that horse into the pavement a few times. And I would have liked to see her come back as maybe a love interest to the Blue Ranger and also an advisor. Like them removing Zordon from the scene, maybe, but maybe instead of the lady we got, maybe instead we should have gotten Trini dispensing wisdom and working from the command center like Haley does in Dino Thunder. And we could have gotten Richie as the Blue Ranger and maybe bring back that actor because he seemed pretty fun. He seemed like a good actor. There was definitely more that could be done with the available talent they did have. So maybe bring back Aisha and Trini in Turbo for 2 different roles. Maybe one before the power transfer of Turbo and the other after. Like Aisha shows up after and Trini shows up before. So that we get to see Trini interact more with Tommy again and Richie becomes a Ranger. Though maybe he departs with the other Rangers just as the transfer happens. But if you want to keep him as Blue Ranger and Trini remains his girlfriend throughout Turbo and in space, that would also be interesting. Then again, that also kind of opens up the way for her to become a Ranger and in space.
That's fair.
That'd be neat. So, yeah.
And even if we consider seeing Turbo straight, maybe as an alternative to Aisha being the 6th Turbo Ranger, it could be Rocky. He just went undercover.
I don't know.
And Breaking the Back was just cover.
I'd rather, like Rocky should come back in another later season. Yeah, I just think every Ranger should at some point have a comeback in a later season. Maybe with the exceptions of Lightspeed Rescue and Lost Galaxy, still seemed solid on their own. And I would not want to see one of the original Rangers come back in those 2 seasons. Let them stand on their own. Even Wild Force, I think it is, was able to like. There are some seasons I'm like, no, don't bring anyone from the older days back.
Keep it self-contained.
Yeah, you do need those seasons. So, anyways, just gonna switch over to our notes because, we've divested enough time on to the other Rangers when That's our fault. Now, Jason joins the Rangers as leader in the Day of the Dumpster. We went over how I think we were of the opinion that Zach, in some ways, was also co-leader or something, or in, at a few points more the leader than Jason, because Jason went off on his own. And the relationship between Zach and Jason, like where Zach kind of takes over as leader a few times, and Jason is off on his own. It does add a complexity to the relationship. But we should never forget that Jason and Zach were truly good friends, and that Zach did stand up to Jason on a few points. I'm not trying to make Jason sound like a bully. He wasn't. It's just Zach stood up to him at a few points, and in turn, Jason relied on the wisdom that Zach naturally had. So the bond was a very close-knit one, and Zach was obviously supposed to be Jason's best friend, and Jason was obviously Zach's best friend. That said, in the episode A Pressing Engagement, we have Jason trying to break Bulk's bench pressing record. He doesn't, because Kimberly and I think Zach end up just, well, in particular, Kimberly just with her bubblegum thing. And yeah, in this episode, you have this rivalry between Jason and Bulk, whom we shouldn't forget that Bulk and Jason were not on friendly relations early in the season.
Bulk at this point was still a bully. He hasn't matured.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to explore Bulk and Skull probably in a later stream as well.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, because they play a large role in the movie. And I just want to do all the Rangers and the characters up to the movie. And then everyone after, like, just that we explore every character throughout the seasons, that, you know, like from the classical period as best we could. And if we end up going past that, okay. I don't know. We've got a lot of content we're trying to cover just with the Mighty Morphin era. And we've taken a few jabs outside Mighty Morphin, but we really gotta, it's still taking us a while just to charge through, because there's so much that happens in these early days. So much that happens. And well, we both kind of watch the series like we're reading a novel. So there's a lot that we try to pick up on, and we take notes of every episode we watch or rewatch. And whenever a new idea pops into our heads regarding the story, we try to take a look at it. And with our character-focused color podcasts, such as the Pink Ranger, the Blue Ranger, the Tommy Oliver podcast, that further complicates things because we have to explore it even more. Now, in the first part of the first season, though, Jason is without a real rival, without someone kind of at his level outside Zach. And I would argue Zach was at his level, but it's a very friendly rivalry, and Jason usually wins in the end. Maybe not against Zach. Sometimes he loses, but Zach's an exception. Jason has a soft spot for Zach, but Jason always wins in most fights or competitions or contests of strength, and even sometimes wit. Let's give him that much. He always wins in the early part of the series. And we have to bear in mind that the Jason of this point in the story is a very different man from who he is at the power transfer. So this is a younger Jason, who's, I would argue, not as angry as he is by the time of the power transfer to an extent, but he's also less disappointed, I think, in himself, because Jason gets a very interesting character arc in the first season, which, if only he got a few more episodes. And the problem is Kimberly and even Billy, to an extent, stole the entire season eventually. So, and that doesn't help matters either. But you have the entire Green Ranger arc that sees Jason compete at the start with Tommy, in the one tournament. They tie, I think, and then Jason goes on to struggle against the Green Ranger, who sometimes gets the better of him. Goldar defeats him, and Jason is never to truly triumph over Goldar. And Jason ends up, of course, triumphing over the Green Ranger and redeeming Tommy. A great victory on his part. But this was not without a victory. It was a victory not without some setbacks. And I'm just cycling through our notes because there's a lot, too many on the Green Ranger arc, and this is not a Green Ranger stream. But in the episode Gung Ho, Jason and Tommy, of course, team up for a Team Ninja competition, which I wonder if it's any relation to the later one kind of competition involving the Stone Canyon Trio.
Maybe.
Oh, we've got some comments. Do it. Vulcan Skull had some good character development. Oh, yeah, they totally did. They totally did.
We definitely want to do a stream on...
All right, we're definitely going to do that. I'll have to, you know what? I might just decide to schedule all the streams for the next while, like all the character streams and whatnot, because I might as well just do that, and we'll try to get into a schedule for this channel. It's the least we could do considering how fast it's growing. And you know what? We do like to talk about this. It's relaxing. I would still keep some things that, okay, this is referring to his question earlier, that are different. Is Tommy still keeps his powers, and Jason becomes the White Ranger and is still the leader for all 4 seasons. I'm not sure I agree with Jason being White Ranger and Tommy remaining Green Ranger. But who would become Red Ranger in place of Jason? Okay. Well, that would be a different series.
Mm-hmm.
Evidently, you're really fond of Jason, and good for
that's
you.
Fine.
Yeah.
He is a good character.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pity he didn't get more to develop, and...
Pity didn't get used as much.
Yeah.
Because, like, the Gold Ranger arc, he didn't even get a proper... Like, he didn't get as much character development. Yeah, there's him and Emily, but why couldn't we get an entire Jason season later, like around the time of In Space or something? That would have been great. Yet Jason never ended his issues with Goldar. See Tommy in season 2. Tommy whooped Goldar like it was a game. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he totally curb stomped Goldar without the powers. Like, that was, wow. Like, now I understand they needed to show that Tommy had triumphed and truly come onto, like, become his own man. You know, it's kind of like the, it's kind of like, I guess, Nightwing triumphing over Deathstroke or something, which they should have done eventually. But, or the Ninja Turtles maybe eventually triumphing over Shredder. But Jason needed that victory at some point, and he didn't get it, which I'm not a Jason fanboy, but, like, come on.
Come in, if I were to bring him in space, like we mentioned, we'd want a skilled swordsman as an opponent.
And you'd have to show Divatox as a skilled swordswoman far more than what was shown.
And who could take on the Space Rangers and really give them a physical challenge.
Well, you'd also...
And then Jason comes in.
Yeah, you'd also need to emphasize Astronema for the arc involving her and her brother. But I'd almost argue In Space should have had the 2 villainesses competing with each other, along with the Psycho Rangers eventually. But where Jason triumphs over a Psycho Ranger, then triumphs over Divatox. Like, give him a big moment like that. And yeah, like he never overcomes the Goldar issue, which that's a darn shame, because there's a lot that could have been done. And the thing with the Gung Ho episode is, from the very start, Jason's basically being made to cooperate with Tommy. And this team up, while I know the actors had their issues, we're not going to get into that.
This is characters purely.
But here's the thing. Jason never got over his Tommy issues either. And contrary to the actors, it was never a heated thing. Now, I know under possession, he ended up saying, now I have the power, and, you know, he was a little psycho, but anyone who's possessed is never in their right. Look at Billy. Billy was not possessed. He had a clone. But, like,
I think there was one time he was possessed.
I don't think so. But the thing is, every possessed character eventually is a little psycho. But Jason, I would argue, has a protective streak of Tommy. And it has to do with the whole green candle thing, in that the failure to save the green candle would haunt Jason for the rest of his life. I want him to also overcome that, because deep down, Jason loved Tommy, and this love for Tommy is what kind of shaped a lot of his actions at a few points. He was always keen to protect Tommy and to uh, shield him, thinking Tommy almost helpless. And well, I'm just going to be honest. I think Tommy did surpass Jason by season 2, and that Tommy, as the White Ranger, had completely surpassed him and eclipsed him. But I'm also of the opinion that Kimberly came to surpass Jason. But I think that for Jason, he would always feel a strong protective urge towards Tommy because of the green candle. And this adds to Jason's character. So this part of his character, I would argue, was one of the most beautiful aspects of the character, because it is a beautiful side of him, and it's a side of him that I wish we had gotten to see at least once and gotten to see him overcome. And I think that another season probably could have helped him with that. And yeah, but the other thing with Jason we have to remember is that sorry, I have to quicken my neck, but is that he's the warrior archetype. Billy may be the magician. Trini is also, I think, kind of the magician. Zach's the lover, but Jason's the warrior. And for a good chunk of the story, he's a warrior in his fullness. But you do see shades of the shadow warrior. And the trouble is, Jason ultimately ends up, well, one of the shadow warrior archetypes is the masochist, I believe, under Jungian theory. And the idea is that I would argue Jason kind of is overshadowed by these insecurities and weaknesses and haunted by his failures regarding primarily Tommy. And so the goal of the warrior is to overcome these foibles and this trauma and become kind of a peaceful warrior, a warrior who could defeat an enemy without swinging a sword, at least in some depictions, but who, when he's made to swing the sword, is truly remarkable and whatnot. So, and who wins in the end. He's basically supposed to be Gawain, who, overcomes the Green Knight. The Rockstar episode sees Jason and his young cousin Jeremy battling against the Mirror of Destruction. But Jason's cousin seems like he's a good potential ranger, but on the other hand, he pushes Jason towards bullying Bulk and Skull when the two are just minding their own business. So I'd argue that here we see shades of the darker side of the warrior in a way. And in season 3, the Ninja Journey, the same, except the team never loses their powers or the Thunder Swords, then they get the ninja powers. I guess that would be neat. No, it would be neat.
Mm-hmm.
I have to admit, it would have probably added a little. I like the loss of the powers because that's upping the ante in the story, but okay, that'd be cool. Technically, did the OG3 ever lose those abilities? I don't like. What I mean is, like, they regained the morphing abilities, but wouldn't they have access to the Thunder Swords? Because technically, Rocky, for example, would not have the Dragon Thunder Sword. Wouldn't he have the ape instead at this point? Because
it's possible, because
we're going to need to research that more.
Because we haven't taken as big an interest in the Zords. Because, yeah, as viewers, we feel that it's
yeah, but I just mean, like, you got to bear in mind, like, I'm just saying, like, Jason's like the Dragon Thunder, the Red Dragon Thunder Ranger, or whatever, and wouldn't Rocky be the Ninjetti Red Ranger? So there's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
Cousin Zio, Jason still blames himself. Oh yeah. And King for a Day, that's a good episode in regards to Jason, how he feels about Tommy. I felt it was a bit of a rehash, and it could have used a few more, like, it could have used a few more story beats, whatnot. I feel that the King for a Day story is better done in the Turbo Ranger movie. But on the other hand, seeing Jason ripped open we had our internet problem there. Okay. I wasn't paying attention to that. Hopefully people can still hear us. But okay, Dan's checking it on his phone. Okay, but the thing is, I think that rips open the wound, and yeah, I just want the wound to eventually be cauterized and kind of properly bandaged. But the Rockstar does not show Jason's good side. I would argue, because like the pizza thing, yeah, Bulk and Skull were being disgusting, but there was no reason to pick that fight. And Jeremy, I'm going to be honest, I didn't much like Jason's cousin.
And it shows aspects of Jason's flaws, which people don't like having some of their favorite characters, their flaws
on display.
But it is important for them to overcome it. Because we know that Jason early on did have a bit of, he was a teenage boy enjoying being top dog. The strongest in the room, the best fighter.
But the thing is, Tommy showed him he wasn't. But on the other hand, Goldar was to kind of worsen things. But I would argue that the flaws we see in the Jeremy episode, the Rockstar episode, Jason does do a really good job overcoming like the ego stuff, like the ego problems. And I'd even argue that to an extent, well, actually, he still has a bit of the ego, but I'd argue that he also has confidence issues later to an extent, because he did fail. And his failure in Mighty Morphin is a fascinating one. And it's a sort of failure you don't really see much in Power Rangers. I'm just going to switch over to our notes. Well, we're at the Green Candle. And yeah, I just like to cycle through the notes on each episode just in order, because otherwise we end up pretty deranged and
disorganized.
Yeah. As disorganized as some of the Tolkien videos. Or streams, I mean. But the Green Candle sees Rita trying to take back the Green Ranger abilities. And you have Tommy, who has to go out and fight off the enemy while Jason goes to secure the Green Candle. And okay, I'll just say, like, once again, it's Goldar who's kind of the problem, like the physical adversary. But on the other hand, you have, I think it's in this episode that you have the scene where Jason says, I can get it, I can reach it. And Zach says, yeah, you might save the powers, but Tommy will lose his life. And for a moment, you see that Jason wants to choose, his first instinct is to choose the candle. And you can understand why. You can't let those powers fall into Rita's hands. And there is an attachment to Tommy there on his end. But ultimately, he's led out because he chooses Tommy's life. Now, on the one hand, I think that there's guilt for failing to get the candle. But there's a greater guilt, I think, that plagues Jason, that I think Tommy read, like when he writes the one letter in the one episode, I think he saw that Jason had this plague in the back of his mind. But I think that Jason deep down feels like he betrayed Tommy as a friend. Like, I valued your powers more than your life. And that this fills Jason with a sense of guilt and shame. At least I read it into his character that this haunts him. And I wish that we would have gotten Divatox to read that into Jason's behavior and throw it in his face, and for Jason to overcome that on screen and defeat her, so that he'd overcome her possessing him. He'd overcome the possession of Tommy emotionally, but he'd also overcome the guilt and grief he feels over the Green Candle.
And one thing I liked about Jason's choice in the Green Candle, he has three options. The powers, which would have helped Zordon long term to fight against evil.
Which they ended up saving the powers.
You have beating Goldar, which is Jason's rival.
Well, actually, that's the same thing as getting the Green Candle.
and then you have rescuing Tommy's life. And I'm emphasizing Goldar separately because it's about ego. But he doesn't go for the ego. He goes for the right choice, saving Tommy.
But he needed Zach to pressure him into it. And I think, like I said, his first reaction is to look back and look to the candle, and he's dragged out. He doesn't resist, but he's dragged out. And that's what does that do to a man? What kind of guilt would you live with, knowing that, bear in mind, by this time, him and Tommy have basically become like brothers. Jason values him like he values Zach. And if he had done that to Zach, do you think Jason could look him in the eye? I don't think he could. So this is the equivalent. Oh, we got another comment. I would like to have the power weapons have a special ability called Dynamos. Okay. I've never thought of that. I guess added weapons and attack, kind of like the Dino Thunder season would work.
And it would add individuality to each of the weapons, giving the Rangers separate tools in order to be able to fight the enemy.
Okay, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. You talked me into it. I wasn't sure because okay. I'm not going to say no because it would mean we get more of the Mighty Morphin Rangers, which I'm always in favor of anything that adds to them. So, okay, yeah, that would be pretty neat. I still maintain I like Tommy as White Ranger. I'm a fanboy of that.
Yes.
But, to each their own. We got the Hatchosaurus episode where Jason uses the Green Ranger abilities. Now, I'm actually going to make one argument. Jason was better with the Green Ranger abilities than Tommy. And the only reason I'm making that argument is just that the problem is eventually the Green Ranger abilities just did this. Off, on, off, on. And it's like, it just got confusing, annoying, and frustrating. And Tommy became more of a damsel and a liability to the team than an actual aid. While under Jason, you had the Dragon Zord, and he was using the Green Ranger abilities as they were meant to be used, like at their full power. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, I think the character of Jason would have punched me in the face for saying this, and he'd get angry about it. But it was actually a good thing the Green Candle kind of hit, because the powers were better used by Jason in a way. And I know that's a controversial attitude. I know they were not yet flicking off, and that this happens after the Green Candle, but I'm not terribly impressed with Tommy's initial run as Green Ranger. He was pretty good, but not like he was as good, I guess, to an extent as Jason, but Jason's Red Ranger abilities still outshine the Green Ranger abilities, in my opinion.
The Green Ranger abilities were holding everyone back.
Yeah, from the start. And the trouble is, and you don't have to agree with us, but Jason put them to really good use. I'd even argue Zach put them to great use. And that, in my opinion, Billy and Kimberly were the rising stars on the team. But, yeah, like, I'm not terribly impressed with... Now, I do like Tommy as a Green Ranger. He was great. But the powers themselves were not reliable, in my opinion. And, like, I like him in, like, anniversary episodes, breaking them out. And those are cool. I love it. But the original Green Ranger abilities, without the Zeo, the Dino Thunder, the Turbo, and the White Ranger abilities to prop it up, just were not as impressive, I would argue. And like I said, you don't have to agree with us, but Jason put those Green Ranger abilities to really good use. And you look at his displays of power, I find those a lot more impressive than Tommy's displays of power with the Green Ranger abilities. But of course, we got a few episodes here and there, and with Jason, where mostly he doesn't play a central role, but we do get Jason having to break a spell cast on the Dragon Zord, which probably would have annoyed Jason considering his emotional attachment to it because of his emotional attachment to Tommy. But the next real episode I find that characterizes and fleshes out Jason is To Flee or Not to Flee, where we discover Jason's a bit of a dog person. which that adds a lot of appeal to his character as if for us French folk, because well, we're attached to our dogs.
You could tell a lot about a person by the way they treat a dog.
Yep.
And Jason goes gaga over a dog.
So it shows that at his core he's a good person. I prefer Rocky as a character, but I really do like this episode. Jason is a good sort. Like he does return the dog to its original owner, but I wonder if he probably has a bit of regret because dog lover.
Likely after he left, he probably got himself a dog.
Well, yeah, I could see him doing that. And probably a large one. He seems like a big dog kind of guy. But let's see. Return of an old friend. Yeah, that episode sees the return of Tommy, who kind of ends up saving the day, saving the Rangers' abilities. Now, here, I'll actually argue we get to see we get to see Jason in an unusual role, because previously it was always his muscles he relied upon to save the day, and he doesn't exactly do a good job thinking his way out of a situation. He's a bit of a meathead early on. But here, we get to see him get one over Goldar, and I really like it. Like, everyone's going, oh no, we lost all our power coins to Goldar because, he took our parents hostage. Jason. Not all the coins, and pulls out the green coin. That was sneaky of him.
Yeah.
That was sneaky. But in that episode, we get to see Jason's family life. Apparently, his dad's a man's man, just like Jason. And Jason hero worships his dad, which...
we see an aspect of that culture in his family.
Yeah. I think that it also means, given how much he worships his dad, he's probably trying to live up to him in some way. And the closeness between the two is a really interesting thing, because Jason is, for him to be a daddy's boy does add a lot, because we don't see much of the family lives of Zach and Billy. Well, there's almost nothing that we see of them. Kimberly has the most complicated family life. Well, her and Tommy, their family lives are not great. But Jason, his seems very stable, very pleasant. And so it makes in a way, he was coming from, like when he got the powers, he was coming from a place of emotional stability. So maybe in some ways, the Ranger abilities, like a lot of superhero powers, did not yield much emotional stability in its aftermath. What I mean is, it's like being drafted into a war. The person coming out will be different than the person going in to the war. And in that regard, but Jason, suffering is part of the hero's journey. So of course he's going to suffer. And I just love him playing a fast one in Goldar. And I believe we got Austin McNeil. Also, all the Rangers are strong, but Jason is the strongest Ranger, but all the Rangers would have great character arcs, and we would learn about their strengths and weaknesses in their families. Yeah, that would be good. Although I'm going to disagree on Jason being the strongest. But maybe according to your idea. I just mean I'm of the opinion that by the end of season 1, Jason got surpassed by Kim, and by middle of season 2, Billy had surpassed him. But I'm biased. And even if I'm not biased, I kind of view it as they got more episodes. We got to see them progress, and they eventually get more accomplishments, I would argue. But the trouble is, Jason should have been stronger than what he was portrayed as in early season 1. But the problem with that is that it's because he left and he made a stand. Like Austin's St. John made a stand against the production cast alongside Walter Jones and Thuy Trong. And so they weren't interested in developing his character. And when he came back in Zeo, they took a different approach to the character, and they didn't have much time to really delve into the character or expand on him, which is why I'm arguing in favor of a full Jason season with him, maybe with a new set of powers, and giving him a larger character arc. I'm not sure if I could see him surpassing Kim, but I could see him maybe being at Billy's level, because Billy I would rank as one of the top 7 Rangers of all times, and it just has to do with Billy's IQ and his physical strength and prowess. Because in the movie, he's a powerhouse. And if you also look at David Yost, he was buff. He was really buff. And you combine that with that Hank McCoy, Batman level IQ that Billy has. I'm not sure, just thinking about it, Billy would be one of the most devastating fighters in continuity. But on the other hand, Kim is pretty much the main character of Mighty Morphin.
With how much she steals the show.
Yeah, but there's also the fact that her accomplishments in terms of raw power.
So,
but Jason should be one of the stronger Mighty Morphin, original OG Rangers.
He got shafted.
Yeah, that's the sad thing. I would like to actually argue that he should be in the Kimberly Billy power block, but he got shafted.
Yeah,
but as a character, I care more about him as a character than about his power or martial arts. If people disagree with me, that's fine. I have a more mild view of his abilities, I guess you could say. But his character I want more of, because he got even more shafted there. Zio did not try to deal with all of the character's issues. He needed a full season. Tommy got Dino Thunder. Jason should have gotten something like Dino Thunder.
I agree, because we look at season 1. In our notes, you have, after Day of the Dumpster, you have 1, maybe 2, and then you have Green with Evil.
Yeah.
That deals with Jason.
He definitely needed more. And
there's usually 1 or 2 characters in the Ranger season that gets thrown to the background.
Yeah, but
why the Red Ranger?
Yeah, I'm a little miffed about that. That happens to Carter in Lightspeed Rescue, but Carter's basically tossed out of the entire show. And I would argue Carter's the second Red Ranger that happens to. Well, maybe Tommy kind of eventually got kind of tossed to the side to an extent, but he did get a few arcs here and there in Zio and Turbo. But to the extent that Jason got tossed out, I'd argue that doesn't happen till Carter. And I was, on our last viewing of Lightspeed Rescue, I was foaming at the mouth over Carter's treatment. And rewatching and prepping for this stream, I'm not impressed with what happened with Jason. I'm getting worked up. I'm actually more a Rocky fanboy. And I'm like, no, you can't do that to Jason. He did need another 3-4 episodes. Heck, Trini should have gotten a few more episodes, arguably. Same with, Zach got enough episodes. Same with Kim and Billy, but maybe remove 1 or 2 of those Kimberly or Billy episodes, because some of them, Jason and Trini needed more. And speaking of Jason and Zach, they helped Roger, another student, practice for a soccer team. And but Tommy's communicator is taken from him, meanwhile, as a B plot of the episode. So that episode and the one where Jason and Tommy try to teach some kids teamwork are basically about showing Jason's love for sports and teamwork. Primarily, he's bonding with Zach and Tommy. So we get to see who he spends all his time with. And, of course, at this time, Tommy is mooning after Kim. So this is, that's a major plot point, I guess, because that's Tommy's character in the first season, mooning after Kim. I just comment on it because that is kind of Tommy's character. He's the love interest.
And we see here an aspect of Jason that he enjoys working with kids. So,
well, primarily he likes sports, I think.
Yeah, and I just figure with all these episodes that deal with him helping kids with sports,
Yeah.
might show that he might be that one dad that's always working with his kid's sports team, like the soccer coach.
You know what? We should have gotten a later season. Jason as the father of another ranger. He'd be frantic with worry for his kid, but that'd be cool. Oh, we've got Rob Kiersey. Okay, I'm actually just going to max this for a moment. Billy was solid in seasons 2 and 3. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. He was solid in all 3 seasons. As for changing things in seasons 3, I wouldn't have done Rangers in reverse. I also made a fan edit dealing with the end of season 3 into Zio. Oh.
Maybe we should take a look at that at a later date.
We're going to have to. Okay, thanks for letting us know, Rob Kiersey. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't always keep track of, like, we just watch the actual show. We don't, or movies, and we don't actually often keep track of the Ranger tubing community and whatnot here on YouTube. I guess we're kind of in a corner. But primarily, I'm busy studying a lot for the Tolkien videos and streams, and also doing janitorial work and working on. Well, we're both writing novels, and I'm doing a lot.
We're doing a lot of reading, watching shows. But you know what?
We're definitely going to watch that.
When you in the comment section, you could probably post that link.
Yeah.
So that way we can see it afterwards.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that. Hey guys, what kind of powers would you give Jason besides red? Well, blue, gold, and black. And what kind of character arcs would he have? Oh, okay.
I'd say my first impulse would be the Black Ranger.
I guess, but so I'm not allowed to give him, like, honestly, I'd want him as, okay, I know. I always forget his name. The Space Red Ranger.
Androth.
I'm going to be honest. I kind of wish that Jason came back as the Red Ranger of In Space. Just as a nod to that first season. But okay. Not to slight Andros. Okay. Black Ranger. Besides red, white, blue, gold, black. Okay, maybe pink. I'm kidding. No. Pink is always female. So, okay, maybe either a Silver Ranger or a. I know that's a kind of white. You know what? Maybe I wouldn't have brought in Jane at all In Space. Maybe make Jason either silver. I still like him as red. I think he would have filled out the red costume great. But if he had to get his own Dino Thunder season, I'd probably go for maybe green. Because bear in mind his unresolved issues regarding the green powers.
Yeah, and that would be a switch.
And maybe make it like a... well, I know he was the red Thunder Dragon Ranger, but maybe something like a Mesoamerican dragon, which is a Quetzal dragon, or something as a Zord or something. So that it's a dragon, just as a nod to the first season, so that Jason's having to deal, like, he's looking at those insecurities right in the face. That might be what I do, because maybe green. But I'd totally have him leading the team or something. And maybe his kid is red or something. Or maybe his kid is green and he's black, like you said. I don't know. I guess I just... yeah. Silver or red typically for me, but I like the idea of him going green. Zio, the only thing I would have done differently is more Zen Rita. Yeah, definitely agree. They should have had their own, like, B plot. I like the idea of the villains warring with each other, like of 2 different villain factions. Maybe that's kind of why I'm like, yeah, we should have gotten more Divatox in Space so that we have a strong amount of Divatox fighting to an extent. Well, sort of fighting. They're like in a Cold War. I'd do like a 10-part episode with a final battle of the Zeo Rangers. Oh, that would have been cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. That was desperately needed.
We didn't fully get a proper fitting ending for the battle between the Rangers and Zed and Rita.
I'd probably want to keep Zed and Rita alive, but I always had the idea that maybe for like a 30-year anniversary Now, bear in mind, this was before GDF had passed, and I always had the idea that maybe Tommy and Zed should have a final fight, and neither of them walk away from it. And that was my notion. But a 10-part episode would be cool. And maybe it could also lead into Turbo a little. That would have been neat. Oh, I never have uploaded it, but I can mostly just upload gaming videos on my channel. Oh, okay. Well, you can always make a secondary channel for that if need be. But anyways, it sounds like a really good idea for a fan edit or something. But yeah, a 10-part episode thing would, like, I don't think enough shows did that kind of thing back in the day. I don't think they did that, and that would be great.
Probably help us help conclude all of the story arcs of the original team.
Yeah,
and it'd probably be a lot more tasteful going into the next team and next series.
Oh yeah. So long as we get a lot of Rocky and Billy, I'm happy. I'm kidding. And maybe Kat. I'd want to see a lot more of her. She was really great in Zio. But honestly, I never liked the pairing with Tommy because I just pushed her into Kim's shadow. I didn't want that.
Kim 2.0.
Yeah. Missing Green, where is the next episode where Jason is, of course, missing Tommy because, of course, he is. Let me ask you, was Tommy at this time dating Kim or Jason? Yeah. And we also get, Missing Green comes after, I think, the Green No More episode, which we don't have in our notes, but seem to have forgotten to do that. But Green No More is when Tommy's abilities finally wink out. But in Green Dream, I think it is, I think all I know is that I remember that one scene where Tommy says, I think this is it. I'm at the end of my power cycle. And it's a very bleak ending, but you have Jason who reaches over and grabs Tommy's shoulder with a shaking hand. So you get a really strong sense of the fraternal bond between the two. I always liked those moments. And with Green No More, Tommy's abilities are completely gone. He curb stomps Goldar like he's nothing. You might as well just have Tommy just pimp slap Goldar, and just like that's basically what happens. But when it comes to Jason in Missing Green, that episode did a lot of good for Jason's character.
It's dealing with the issues that we discussed earlier about him needing to confront the guilt
and the grief. But the trouble is, like I said, I just would have liked to see him close up his issues regarding Tommy. Jason's not I don't know if he's in my top 10 or top 5 favorite Rangers. I don't think he is, but he's a character that's like, honestly, the Jason fans deserved better. Like, yeah, I just feel like to an extent, Leo got to do the Jason thing and got more, like, he was given more favor. I like Tommy better. I like Rocky probably as my favorite Red Ranger. Him or TJ, I love them both a lot, probably equally. TJ's just awesome. But I don't know if there's ever been a Red Ranger in hindsight that's ever been more ill-served other than maybe Carter. Because Carter was written out of his own series for reasons that escape me. But Jason is just essentially chucked out.
And it isn't fair to anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't Damon of Lost Galaxy.
Yeah, who doesn't even have an arc. There's an episode in season Tommy totally embarrasses Goldar. Yeah, I do remember that. He was White Ranger, I think, at that point. I also know that him and Kim basically pimp slap Goldar at one point and say, stay out of this when they're fighting with each other. Goldar kind of gets surpassed by all the Rangers. I remember Billy actually, I think at one point schooling him. Rocky and Adam totally just play with him and act like he's a joke, which that speaks to the power that the two have. I never took it as Goldar's powers diminishing, but rather the Ranger's abilities are growing. But Jason is a character I would have liked to see him get a power progression arc. That's why I guess I'm kind of against him being just granted the Gold Ranger abilities. And I'd have liked to see him get rusty to an extent, like kind of like K in MIB2. I really like MIB2 as a movie. I know not everyone likes it, but I think it's K, the old, more seasoned, the Tommy Lee Jones character. And he's rusty at the start, but then he, gets better later. And I think that that kind of arc would have suited Jason, where he starts off, rusty, but then he progresses and becomes better than what he was. And I would argue the season should culminate maybe in. Now I'm biased towards TJ. I'd want him to maybe be second or third best, but Jason should probably be the best on the team at the end of In Space or something. That's what I would have done, but we're not discussing that. Actually, to be quite honest, I had not intended for us to even touch on Jason from Zeo, but it just speaks to how interwoven all the different appearances of Jason are with his original one, which there is some positive there. But if you ask me which character, if we could go back in time and have a do-over of some things in his arc, maybe Jason might be the one I'd want to do that the most too, because no closure. And that's kind of realistic in some ways. Not everything gets closure in life, but this is literature. It's supposed to be a little different.
The warrior archetype is an archetype that has to confront
the demon
and overcome it. But Jason was confronted by the demon, but he never got a chance to overcome it.
Yeah, maybe before he walked off, maybe they should have had an episode where he defeats Goldar. Or maybe like at his return, Goldar should have been brought back as a villain in Space, and he defeats him at long last. And then maybe at the end defeats Divatox. Actually, although I'd argue that if they're going to have him defeat Goldar in either Zeo or In Space or whenever, Jason should actually do him in. He should finally, at long last, put an end to Goldar's, I don't want to say reign of terror, but his reign of terror. And over Jason's life in a way. But maybe have it be a 3 or 4 parter where Goldar starts stalking Jason or something, like what Rita did with Kimberly. I know you're thinking like that silly Calamity Kimberly episode, but I'm thinking something less comedic and more like Eber Thawne from the Flash comics,
where he's taunting, "Oh, everyone else has defeated me. I've always was one step ahead of you."
But I was thinking like he actually goes after like Jason's dog or something. Like it actually gets serious and dark.
Good. Like that'd be an interesting idea.
And maybe even hospitalizes Jason's dad, and maybe even tries to go after, like maybe it goes after Tommy or something to an extent without, and Jason, like this is the last straw. Like he finally just says, okay, that's it. I'm not that's it.
Enough's enough.
Yeah. And where he takes Goldar down, but not out of vengeance, but out of justice. Where he does decide to spare Goldar initially, but Goldar pushes his luck. Kind of like what happens with Kyle Katarn and the Dark Forces 2 video game. And if you're not familiar with it, okay, it basically ends with Kyle getting the chance to have his revenge, turning away from it, and the other guy deciding to try to jump him when he thinks he's not paying attention. And Kyle finally does the guy in. Of Dark Forces 2 being a Star Wars video game. Here, Dan, I'll just do this and max this. You need to talk about the worst monsters, as in the ones they made actual threats, such as, for example, in season 3, Blue Clobber. I actually forgot about that one. I guess we should probably start talking about all the different monsters of the week at some point, because I guess we could do a separate podcast for that. I hadn't fully thought of it. We were focused on the Rangers. I had in mind that we should do a Rita Repulsa live stream and a Zed live stream at some point. I had considered a Goldar one, but I guess this one's kind of a Goldar one. Because Goldar and Jason had a really, really long-lasting rivalry. But maybe we should do a Rita and Zed one as separate things.
Yeah.
Also, Zed, any live stream of Zed would be also result in us paying homage to the actor because he passed away a few years ago. And apparently he was a sweet old man.
And Zed's an awesome awesome villain.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just sad to think we're losing all those great stars in a way. And yeah, maybe we will have to get into all the different monsters of the week. Thanks for giving the idea, Rob Kiersey. You get full credit for it. Because I probably wouldn't have thought of it. Just being honest, with everything that's going on, I wouldn't have thought of it. And yeah, so we'll have to do that. But later I'll try scheduling today or tomorrow for all the different streams. The thing is, I got to make all the thumbnails for the streams. And I typically make one and then I just kind of move on to the other because we got a pretty full schedule with the main channel and with our current jobs and whatnot. But maybe I'll just go on a thumbnail making binge and just schedule like week after week a few Power Ranger streams or something every week or two. I think people would appreciate that because this channel's gotten big enough. It's almost half the size. Well, actually, right now it's about a third of the size of the main one, but it's catching up really quick, lickety split. So if this channel keeps growing at this speed, wow, this will kind of become the main channel, which that'd be funny. Like, I don't say this is the side channel as disrespect. I just say it's the reality. But if this surpasses the main one, that'd be funny. And it probably will, because here we're focused only on Power Ranger stuff, while over on the main channel, it's all over the place with different, like with Conan the Barbarian, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and with D&D stuff and Zelda and Warcraft and all that other stuff, older fantasy stories. So yeah, if that sounds like your speed, go check it out. We have our other channels at the bottom of the main page on this channel's homepage, so do subscribe over there as well. But this channel, well, we're gonna have to do, maybe we'll just call it the Monsters Podcast, because why not? Keep it simple. And examining the different monsters' abilities and personalities would be kind of neat. And they do give a clue to an insight into the different characters' personalities in a way, if you consider them dark shadows of the Rangers.
Because that usually is the case behind a villain. They are the shadow of the hero.
Yeah, because if you look at like how Tommy originally showed up as a villainous Power Ranger, he's technically a shadow to Jason, I mean. But the trouble is that later, Tommy's not brought in as a warrior archetype character as Green Ranger. He's brought in as the lover archetype to Kim. I'm just saying he is. And in turn, as White Ranger, he's pretty much, I guess you could say, the king archetype. He's the warrior, lover, magician, all wrapped into one near perfect package. And Kimberly kind of assumes the role of the queen archetype. But arguably, like, Rocky's a warrior archetype. Billy's still the magician. Aisha's a warrior, obviously. Adam is probably a lover archetype, I'd argue. But Jason, yeah, Tommy was kind of the shadow, the sadist archetype to Tommy's warrior in his fullness, at least as evil Green Ranger. And Jason ends up Jason ends up confronted by Goldar, who's also the sadist archetype. It's interesting that Jason has the most rivals in season 1.
Yeah.
And Kim's the one with the rival in the form of Rita. But, oh man, there's a funny and petty rivalry, probably the most petty in literature. I've never seen in literature like that. Someone, I'm just going to give her a bad day. Why? Just because.
Just
What
a
is the
minor curve that is ridiculously silly.
Yeah, it's almost like I'll just give her a bad hair day. What's the point? But that's Rita Repulsa. But she's basically the Wicked Witch of the West as an archetype. But we didn't get to see Jason actually confront someone like Zed. Now that I think about it, that would have been
pity.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to see him confront Zed. I don't think he'd beat Zed, but it would, because Zed's uber powerful. He's basically Darkseid from DC Comics, except I prefer Zed. I think Zed's better. He doesn't have that stupid bragging, one blast of my Omega beams. And it's like, okay, dude, stop bragging about it. Just shoot him. Like, it's just, well, Darkseid just also reminds me of Spaceballs because it's like, preparing to fire. Why are you always preparing? You're always preparing. Just do it. Like, that's my argument. I guess I'm like Dark Helmet. Just go. Just do it. But Zed, he doesn't just hesitate. He just goes for it.
And then when he gets angry, or than usual, the entire room starts heating up.
But in a way, that's a reflection of Jason's temper, because his temper gets worse as the first season progresses. Whatnot. Remember, he's so angry with Goldar towards the end of his journey, like at the beginning of season 2. He really has a chip on his shoulder about Goldar.
Probably frustration that he's never truly met an opponent that could best him the way Goldar does.
And Goldar doesn't even do it with dignity. He just humiliates Jason every chance.
And that's probably salt in the wound.
Yeah. Which is why I want Jason to I wish Jason had beaten him. Because I wanted him to ram his fist down Goldar's throat on the most recent watch through. Because it's like, okay, Goldar, shut up. Like, Goldar is just the worst. Like, you almost expect him to start singing like Cinderella, or like the stepsisters taunting song against Cinderella. I think they had one. I can't remember. But you almost expect him to break into song just taunting him. And it's like, dude, you're just kicking him while he's already down.
It's like
I just want him to ram his fist down Goldar's throat.
If Rita's the petty catty female bully,
Goldar's the bully from what is it? That one Christmas movie. Oh, what you gonna do? You gonna cry?
Let me shove you in the locker.
Yeah,
I'll give you a reason to cry.
Yeah, he's basically that guy. Which, yeah, that's Goldar. Sorry for going off on a tangent, but like I said, I wish Jason got the chance to beat Goldar. He should have beaten Goldar. He should have also beaten. Well, like I said, I like the Turbo movie, but I just wish Jason got a match with Divatox to just
get closure on that angle.
Well, not only that, but I wish someone had beaten Divatox and slain her in battle. Like, give her a big fight scene.
Because she just vanished out of the season, and she was one of them that destroyed the command center.
Well, they did have that stupid Zordon wave that purified everyone. I never liked that.
Oh,
like, have the villains be beaten by the heroes.
Not just
poof! And their villainy gone. No. Have, like, Tommy defeat Zed. Have Jason defeat Divatox. Have Kimberly defeat Rita. And actually kick her in the face. Well, we got to see Drakina lose to Leo. How come we got closure on that, but not on Jason and Divatox?
I mean, Leo and Drakina, that last fight
was pretty good, but like, it doesn't have the. I just tend to think that the Jason Divatox rivalry had a bit more salt in it.
I agree,
because she possessed him. Like,
it should have been something that could have been addressed.
Yeah, and there's also the Goldar rivalry. I think I put it on par with the Drakina Leo rivalry. The difference is Drakina is obviously a bigger threat, and Goldar was a bigger douche. I think that's the one English term. I don't know why. Well, I don't know why we'd use the term for a French term for showerheads as an insult, but okay. So yeah, like I think that should have been a rivalry we saw. Like I don't know, like I don't. I like Goldar in the movie, but maybe as Gold Ranger, Jason should have done him in. Like there should have been a wrap up on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like give Jason one victory.
Yeah.
Over Goldar, like give him one. Anyways, sorry if we're ranting. It's just like that's the thing about Jason. No closure. And
he got cheated out of a lot.
And just as Trini got cheated out of a love story, Jason got cheated out of a warrior action adventure story. Which, yeah. If you guys, do you guys agree with us on the matter of, sorry, it's itchy, of that maybe Jason should have gotten his own season later? Like, I'm not talking like 25 or 35 years later or whatever. I'm talking like back in the day, like in the span of the first 10 years or something, or 15 years, he should have gotten that an entire season. I do think that Tommy should have gotten a whole season, like a Green Ranger season, like what Rise of the Emerald Ranger, I think it is, or Rise of the Emerald Dragon. That should have been a whole season or something. But I think that Jason should have gotten his own kind of variant of Dino Thunder in a way. In hindsight, maybe him being a dad to a ranger, where maybe the kid's trying to hide it from him at first, and then Jason finds out and is like, oh gosh. And he has to protect his own kid while balancing maybe his own issues. That would have been a great arc. Can you imagine? Like, we get the younger hero, like kind of like the Robin, and we get Jason. That'd be fun. And I do specify that arc would work best with Jason because his own hero worshipping of his dad. So, like, let us know what you guys think of that. Oh, I mean, Tommy's cool and everything, but to me, Jason always will be the leader of the Power Rangers and the true Gold Ranger. And powers. I disagree with the Kim Jason thing. I always saw that as kind of incestuous, but that's just me. I guess I kind of viewed them as siblings and couldn't get around. I can't even imagine that pairing. Not to mention Kat was right there. You could have paired him up with Kat instead.
It would have brought both of them out of Tommy and Kimberly's shadow,
I guess.
But it would have allowed us to explore both characters in a different vein.
But if you prefer Jason as team leader, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I got no arguments there. I prefer Tommy and Kim as team leaders, but yeah, okay. Like our oldest brother is more on the Jason. He liked Jason as leader better, and like he has some pretty good arguments for it and whatnot. As for him being the true Gold Ranger, yeah, I get it. No, like there are far worse choices that could have been made. Like I'm just saying, I think Billy would have been a better choice. But I think that all things considered, considering how this production cast sometimes treated some of the actors, and given how some Power Ranger seasons turned out, like Mystic Force.
I wanted to like that. It had a great setting.
But the problem, like Jason as Gold Ranger, I don't think we give the devil his due enough. And I don't mean that as flack against Jason. I think that they brought back Jason. Who knows? They could have brought back, like they could have given the power to Bulk and Skull or something. Or to, I don't know, his cousin Jeremy. Or like, like this is something that it was a bold decision at the time. So it does deserve some credit. So, yeah, like you prefer Jason overall as a character, that's fine. I personally prefer Tommy, but I grew up with Tommy. Ironically, I thought for a long time that I preferred Billy and whatnot. It's just recently I found that I kind of prefer Tommy. But anyways, Jason's a character that we should have gotten all that closure to. But anyways, tell us what you think in the comments section down below. Feel free to disagree with us. We are always welcome to it because, well, a lot of people, disagreement is part and parcel to life. And you know what? It'd be really boring if everyone agreed with each other all the time, just as it's. But let's keep it civil because, yelling matches are not fun in turn either. So, and everyone has their own vision of how Power Rangers should have turned out, which is what makes this franchise so great. So, yeah. Also, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button. And hopefully in the next day or two, I'll have the next bunch of Ranger live streams scheduled out. We're probably going to do, well, considering everything, maybe Tommy next. And then we're going to maybe do Billy or Bulk and Skull or Rita or something. We'll probably do Kim kind of last because she's kind of the main character. We're trying to do it in build up towards her. And then it's going to be over to the Stone Canyon Trio, and then Tommy as White Ranger and the Billy and it for the rest of season 2, and Kim for the rest of season 2. We're just building up to the movie, and then we're going to just for fun, I guess. But anyways, everyone have a great time, and remember, Rangers, may the power protect you.